Hello, and welcome to this brief clip in which we discuss your role as rapporteur of one of FWO's expert panels. At this stage of the evaluation procedure, several experts have already completed important work in reviewing the proposals that were submitted to your panel. Two panel members, who have a more generalist profile, and two external reviewers, who were selected for their on-topic expertise, have independently of one another written and submitted a review. Please remember that for multidisciplinary projects, one of the external reviewers may have expertise on a topic outside of the panel's scientific scope. This particular reviewing expertise was expressly requested by the applicant and likely addresses a part or aspect of the application that focuses on research somewhat outside the panel's own scientific scope. The 4 reviews have been presented to the applicants for rebuttal. All 4 reviews and the rebuttal are now made available to you as rapporteur of the proposal. Your role as rapporteur is to compose a synthesis report, which is what we will discuss in this video. Before we dive into your role as rapporteur, let us remind you that throughout FWO's evaluation procedures, the scoring grid plays a key role in guaranteeing an equal frame of reference to assess proposals. External reviewers are instructed to rely on the scoring grid as well, but given their limited experience with this instrument, they could potentially deviate from FWO's guidelines. Your role as rapporteur is essential in correcting such deviations by external reviewers and potentially by less experienced panel members as well. Throughout the next steps of the evaluation, the scores provided by the reviewers will be an important element. In the video on how to prepare the internal evaluation report, we explained how to assign scores for the different criteria. As rapporteur, you should use the same approach in assigning the scores in your synthesis report. The scoring grid incorporates FWO's policy to move away from a one-sided evaluation of research teams based solely on their publication output. A broader set of academic contributions should be considered when assessing the applicants. We call this the second axis. As rapporteur, you may be confronted with reviews that focus mainly on publications. In these cases, we urge you to correct for this narrow approach in the synthesis report you write and in the scores you give. As rapporteur, we expect you to get acquainted with the application as well as with the 4 reviews and the rebuttal that are provided. In the FWO portal, you will find a form where you can submit your findings with respect to the quality of the application. At this stage, the 2 main criteria, that is the team and the project, are to be scored with a thorough motivation. Your synthesis report should be based on all relevant input that was provided in the 4 available reviews. We want to stress that you should not write your own separate review, but rather that you are expected to synthesize the comments provided by the other reviewers. And please do not forget the rebuttal, which provides the response from the applicants to the 4 review reports. In case you believe the reviewers overlooked certain elements of the application, you can certainly add this to your report and take this into account in your score. Your own expert opinion, if applicable, can also come into play. All of this information will lead to a score for the team, which accounts for 25% of the total score, and for the project, which accounts for 75% of the total score, and then a total weighted score. These scores may be the average of the other reviewers' scores, certainly if the reviewers all correctly applied the score grid. But your scores may also deviate from the mathematical average. In the latter case, the application will very likely be discussed at the panel meeting, so you should be able to motivate for your fellow panel members why you opted to deviate from the average scores. Your synthesis report and your scores are the starting point for the panel discussion at the panel meeting. On top of the 4 reviews, a 5th document to take into account is thus the rebuttal formulated by the team or the applicant. The 4 reviews have been presented to the supervisor spokesperson of the project, and they have been given the opportunities to submit a response to these reports. The rebuttal is not mandatory, but it is an opportunity for the applicants to clarify certain elements. It is strictly limited to 3 pages, no other documents can be uploaded, and it is intended only for the clarification, correction of concrete comments in the review reports. No new elements, new defense, or new design of the proposal can be included in the rebuttal. Should any such elements be included, you are instructed to ignore these in your appraisal of the rebuttal and of the application. As rapporteur, you are expected to weigh these comments by the applicants against the reviews and to integrate your findings into your report. Please mention explicitly that you did take into account the rebuttal, especially in the feedback report that will be based on your synthesis report and that will eventually be sent to the applicants. Your rapporteur scores and report will form the basis for the discussion during the panel meeting. At the beginning of the panel meeting, the applications are ranked on the basis of the rapporteur's scores, so it is important that these scores are accurate. Based on the discussion with other panel members, these scores can of course still be amended during the meeting. This will result in a new ranking. As you work as rapporteur, please remember that all reviewer scores will be shared with the panel and presented during the discussion, but that no mathematical integration such as the averaging of scores takes place. All further discussion will be based on the rapporteur scores that you give. The deadline for submitting these rapporteur synthesis reports is 1 week before the panel meeting. This will give the chair of your panel the time to analyze all scores in advance of the meeting and to set up an efficient and effective meeting. As rapporteur, you will also be responsible for writing the feedback report for the applicants. Your synthesis report will serve as the basis for your feedback report. The subscores of the project, however, are not mentioned here anymore. The applicant will only see one project score, which was initially the average of the two subscores, but might now possibly be amended at the panel meeting. Do make sure that your assessment incorporates all initial sub-criteria in a holistic way. The feedback should explain to applicants why they were funded, or more likely why they were not funded, and articulate ways in which they could potentially improve the application in the future, to be submitted to FWO or elsewhere. Your synthesis report, as well as the feedback, has the same format and should clearly identify strengths, weaknesses, and suggestions for improvement. The form in our e-portal is therefore also structured according to these 3 elements. The feedback is due 1 week after the panel meeting, so a carefully drafted synthesis report will not only increase the transparency towards the applicants, but will also help to avoid any delays in the further evaluation procedure. This concludes this video on the role of the rapporteur. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact your account administrator. Many thanks for your interest in the FWO, and for now, goodbye.